So there's a saying that goes, the sharper your knife, the less you cry. And it's true. Reality is, if you let your knives get really dull, they're more likely to slip and do things you don't expect. And the thing you don't expect is usually cutting you. It's not a good thing. So it's really important that you keep your knives sharp. Now we're all guilty of like letting them dull. I do it because like sometimes you don't realize it. You get so used to using it constantly that you just get so used to like whatever state it's in right at that moment. But the reality is like you'll notice the knives are starting to get dull because they just don't cut as cleanly. They don't cut as smoothly. You need to use a little bit more force. And anytime you have to exert force on a knife, is a bad thing. And I speak from experience here because I was cutting a wheel of cheese once with a brand new little tiny paring knife, like a 3-inch paring knife. I was just trying to cut off this piece of cheese and it got stuck. And instead of like pausing and pulling the knife out, I like messed with it and the stupid knife went all the way through the block of cheese, like 5 inches of cheese, and straight into what would have been my gut had my thumb not been in the way. Right. So now I have this like mega scar on my thumb with like 8 stitches where I cut right through my thumbnail all the way down to the bone and essentially filleted my thumb. And I heard 3 words that I never want to hear again. And those words are high pressure irrigation, which is where they wash your wound out with a high pressure hose. So let's just say you never want to exert extra force on a knife ever. Ever, under no circumstances. If you're finding that you have to like exert extra force and really force it, you're doing something wrong. Either the knife is dull, it's the wrong knife for the tool, whatever it is frozen and not going to yield. Just if you find at any point you go, stop, put the knife down, back away, and engage your troubleshooting skills, because anytime you have to exert any strength or any force on a knife, it's a problem. So apropos of that, we're going to talk about sharpening our knives. So you'll notice that a knife is sharp because it doesn't cut as quickly, it doesn't cut as cleanly, and you might even be able to like look at it and see that it's got like little nicks along the edge. Like if it's got nicks along the edge, it actually needs to be taken to a professional sharpener. At that point, like it just needs like a professional's touch. But in the short term, what you can do to keep your knives sharp is to hone them. Now, here's a little bit of knife science, if you will. So a knife edge is an angle, right? The more you cut it, that angle starts to move to one side or the other. It's just natural. It's the way that knives are. What happens when you hone your knife is you actually run it along a steel rod and it straightens that edge out again. Now, if you sharpen a knife, sharpening is totally different. Sharpening actually is taking your knife on like a wheel or a whetstone. It's actually like a stone, like a sandpaper type thing. And you're actually grating off the layers of metal to create a new edge. So that's the big difference between honing and sharpening. Like sharpening is removing metal to create a new edge, whereas honing is literally just straightening the edge back to a stable point that you can use. And like on the day-to-day, like you can just hone your knife. But when you've noticed that honing your knife before you use it isn't really working, that means that it's time to have it professionally sharpened. So I'm gonna show you how to hone your knife. So this is a honing steel. This actually is a different kind of honing steel. Generally, you'll find them in their silver. This is a white honing steel. It's a diamond tip honing steel. And what you want to do is you want to take your knife and you want to lay it at an angle. So every knife has a slightly different angle, or every brand of knife has a slightly different angle, right? So if you were to look at your knife like this, you'll see it's not just like that, right? It literally goes like this a little bit. You've got the flat part of the knife and then it kind of curves in a little bit and comes to a point. And that angle, it changes from brand to brand. Like German knives have like a slightly broader angle, whereas Japanese knives have a slightly finer angle, sharper angle. Basically what you want to do is you want to find like the angle of that knife and you want to drag it across the honing steel like that. And then you want to do the other side and you want to keep that angle consistent. And you can actually feel when it's catching. Like if it's not right, it'll just kind of like slide across the thing. But as soon as you feel like a grit, like you'll feel like it's kind of gripping the honing steel, you'll know that that's the right angle that you've got. And you just want to do it like 3 or 4 times on each side. And you'll see chefs get all crazy and do this really fast. It's like a point of pride. Don't do that. You're just going to cut yourself. Like they'll do it this way too, towards yourself. Please don't do that unless you've been like doing this for years and years and years, because when you do this, people do this because they want to be cool. They think it's awesome. They go really fast and then they cut their freaking fingers off. Like that's really not great. So go slow take it slow, and just get how it feels. And slowly over time, doing it more and more, you'll speed up just naturally. But do not, whenever it comes to knives, do not push for speed. Never push for speed. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he was complaining about how he chops so slowly. Slow is safe, okay? Like if anybody is feeling bad about the speed at which they're chopping, they really need to pause and think about what they're doing, because there are, unless you're working in a commercial kitchen and you have to chop like 300 onions, there's really no reason to chop fast. It just increases the likelihood of you cutting yourself. It is way better to go slowly and precisely. Not only will you be safer, but the cuts of your food will be better off. The faster you go, you make mistakes and it's not good. Go slowly, stay safe, and stay more precise.